Samuel Parker, a farmer from rural Georgia, drove his old Ford F-1000 to downtown Atlanta. His simple clothes, faded jeans, checkered shirt and worn boots, contrasted with the suit he had stored in the back seat. After 20 years raising cattle, he had finally closed a deal that would change his life. The sale of his award-winning bovine genetics to a group of investors led by Mitchell Anderson, the most influential businessman in Georgia's agriculture industry. Savannah Flavors was the most sophisticated restaurant in the capital. Its large glass windows reflected the evening sun, while the imposing facade intimidated ordinary passers-by. Samuel had reserved a table to celebrate his achievement alone, savoring for the first time what it was like to be on the other side of the fence, no longer the producer who supplied the meat, but the customer who enjoyed it in an elegant setting. He parked his dusty truck next to imported SUVs and got out, deciding not to change clothes. "This is how I got here. This is how I'll enter," he thought, proud of his origins. His firm steps on the sidewalk left small clouds of red dust, remnants of the dirt road from his farm. As he approached the entrance, two security guards in dark suits crossed their arms. The taller one, with a discreet earpiece, examined him from head to toe. "May I help you, sir?" he asked with evident disdain. "I have a reservation." "Name's Samuel Parker," replied the farmer, maintaining his dignity. The security guard exchanged glances with his colleague before responding, "I'm sorry, but we have a dress code. Without proper attire, we cannot allow your entry." Samuel felt his face burn. "But I have a reservation. It's a special occasion." "Rules are rules," the guard cut him off. "Perhaps another establishment would be more appropriate for you." The humiliation hit Samuel like a punch to the stomach. He turned, but didn't head to his truck. Instead, he walked to the side parking lot, where he had left his most valuable possession, Thunder, the Tennessee walking horse that accompanied him to all important negotiations. The impressive animal, with its shimmering golden coat, was tied in the shade of a tree near the parking lot. "They may bar the man, but they cannot deny the strength of what I've built," he muttered, untying the animal. Samuel mounted Thunder with the skill of someone born in a saddle. The horse, recognizing the familiar command, reared slightly and whinnied. People on the sidewalk stopped to observe the unusual scene. A man mounted on a magnificent Tennessee walking horse in front of one of the most elegant restaurants in the city. With a slight touch of his heels, Samuel guided Thunder to the restaurant entrance. The same security guards who had barred him minutes before now seemed petrified. The sound of hooves on the asphalt attracted the attention of customers inside the establishment, who turned to the windows, curious. "Are you going to turn me away now, too?" challenged Samuel, raising his chin. Before the security guards could react, an authoritative voice emerged from inside the restaurant. "Let him in!" It was Richard Morrison, the restaurant manager, a middle-aged man with a troubled expression. "Sir, please disregard the behavior of our employees. If you could leave the horse out here, you'll be welcome in our establishment." "No," Samuel replied calmly. "Either we enter together, Thunder and I, or we don't enter at all. This horse is worth more than your entire restaurant, and he has never judged me by my appearance." The manager hesitated, calculating the damage of a scene versus the insanity of allowing a horse in the dining room. But before he could decide, Samuel advanced, guiding Thunder into the restaurant. The customers moved away, some horrified, others fascinated. Glasses clinked and waiters froze with trays in hand. "I have something to say," announced Samuel, his voice echoing in the now silent room. "And I believe everyone here, especially someone sitting in this room, needs to hear it." At the back, of the restaurant, at the most exclusive table, Mitchell Anderson choked on his red wine. His aristocratic features paled as he recognized the man mounted on the horse. Beside him, a group of executives observed the scene confused. "That hick has gone crazy," Mitchell whispered to his companions, but his tone of contempt couldn't hide his nervousness. Samuel guided Thunder to the center of the dining room, where the light from the crystal chandelier shone directly on both of them, creating an almost mythical spectacle. Man and animal united in an act of rebellion against the social conventions that had marginalized people like him for so long. My name is Samuel Parker, cattle breeder from the Red Lands of Millbrook. He began, his voice firm despite his racing heart. And I'm here to tell a story about values, dignity, and the true meaning of the word honor. The gazes of those present alternated between the unusual intruder and the businessman at the back of the room, whose face now revealed a mixture of anger and apprehension. No one noticed an elegant woman in a red dress who was watching attentively from the bar, her eyes never leaving Samuel's figure. The silence in Savannah Flavors was absolute as Samuel, still mounted on Thunder, pointed directly at Mitchell Anderson. "That man sitting at the honor table," he said, "closed the biggest deal of my life with me today, $15 million for my bovine genetic improvement technology, developed over 20 years of work. A deal that would transform not only my life, but that of dozens of families who depend on my farm." Mitchell stood up, adjusting his Italian linen suit. "Samuel, this is not the proper place to discuss business. If you'll allow me, we can talk in private." "No," the farmer's voice thundered. "The time for private conversations where people like me are manipulated behind the scenes is over. Today, everyone here will be witnesses." The waiters and the manager looked at each other, uncertain how to proceed. Some customers discreetly began filming the scene with their cell phones, while others whispered among themselves, intrigued by the unfolding events. "What this distinguished businessman didn't tell you," continued Samuel, "is that in the contract we signed today, he inserted a last-minute clause. A clause that transfers not only the rights to my technology, but also the ownership of my lands. Lands that have been in my family for 4 generations. A murmur of surprise ran through the room. Mitchell advanced a few steps, his artificial smile not reaching his eyes. "Samuel is confused, ladies and gentlemen. Business is sometimes too complex for certain people to understand." The farmer dismounted from the horse with an agile movement, surprising everyone. Thunder remained motionless, as if understanding the importance of the moment. Samuel walked until he was face to face with Mitchell. "Complex, Mitchell? Like how you altered attachment 3 after I signed it, or how you convinced the bank to withhold payment until I left the land." The businessman's face hardened. "Be careful with your accusations, Parker. You're among people who understand how the world really works. And that's why I'm here," retorted Samuel, turning to the others present, "so that everyone can see how the world really works for men like Mitchell Anderson." From inside his shirt pocket, Samuel removed a crumpled envelope. "I have here the original contract I signed this morning, and also the modified version that Mr. Anderson presented to the notary an hour later, thinking I would be too ignorant to request a certified copy." The tension in the air was palpable. An elderly lady at a nearby table spontaneously applauded, soon joined by others. Mitchell looked around, realizing he was losing control of the situation. "This is absurd. You invade a private establishment, mounted on an animal, and expect to be taken seriously." Mitchell was trying to recover authority in his voice. "Someone called security." "Before I'm thrown out," Samuel raised his voice, "I'd like everyone to know that Mr. Anderson's empire was built exactly like this, deceiving small producers, altering contracts, and counting on the silence imposed by fear and shame." At this moment, a female voice sounded clearly from the other side of the room. "He's telling the truth." Everyone turned to see who had spoken. The woman in the red dress stood up, walking with elegance to the center of the scene. Her dark eyes fixed on Mitchell with an intensity that made him instinctively back away. "My name is Lisa Miller, reporter for Agribusiness America magazine. I've been investigating Mr. Anderson's business practices for 6 months. Samuel Parker is not the first, nor will he be the last if no one stops him." Mitchell paled even more. "Lisa, what are you doing here?" "Following a lead, as always," she replied with a contained smile. "And it seems I found more than I expected." A middle-aged man rose from a side table. "Robert Campbell, attorney. Mr. Parker, allow me to examine those documents." The crowd made way when the lawyer approached. Samuel handed him the papers with steady hands while Mitchell tried to intervene. "This is private property of Anderson Agribusiness. You have no right." "I have every right," interrupted Samuel, "because my signature is on them. And because, unlike what you think, Mitchell, I can read every word of that contract." The lawyer examined the documents for a few minutes, the silence in the restaurant broken only by the occasional soft whinny from Thunder. Finally, he looked up. "There is clearly an alteration here. The clause regarding property transfer does not appear in the original document, only in the later version." A murmur of indignation spread through the room. Cell phones continued filming, and some customers were already sharing the scene on social media. Mitchell looked around, desperate, like a cornered animal. "This proves nothing. It's his word against mine, and everyone knows who I am in this city." Samuel smiled for the first time since entering the restaurant. "That's why I brought this too." He took a small recorder from his pocket. "Our entire conversation this morning, including the moment you explained how I should sign quickly, without reading the attachments because they're just formalities." Mitchell's face contorted in an expression of fury and despair. He advanced against Samuel, but was restrained by two waiters who acted quickly. "You'll pay for this, Hick. You don't know who you're messing with." Lisa approached, her reporter's recorder now also visible. "Any other statement, Mr. Anderson?" "For the record." At that moment, the restaurant manager finally regained his composure. "Mr. Anderson, I believe it would be better if you left. We're calling the authorities to register the incident." "Call the authorities on this intruder," shouted Mitchell, pointing at Samuel. "Actually," intervened the lawyer, "I suggest you call them for both. There are serious accusations here that need to be formally investigated." An older man, seated at a discreet table, slowly stood up. His presence exuded authority, and many in the room immediately recognized him. It was Federal Judge Howard. "Patterson, as a magistrate, I cannot ignore what I've witnessed here," he said in a measured voice. "Mr. Parker, keep your documents safe. Mr. Anderson, I suggest you contact your lawyer immediately. And as for the horse," he looked at Thunder with an almost amused expression, "I believe he has already fulfilled his role as a silent witness to justice." The judge turned to Samuel. "Young man, your courage is admirable, but there are protocols to be followed. I suggest you remove your noble animal from the restaurant before the authorities arrive." Samuel nodded affirmatively, feeling the adrenaline finally diminishing in his body. He stroked Thunder's neck, murmuring words of thanks. At his side, Lisa observed with intensity. "This story is far from over," she whispered as she approached. "Mitchell Anderson has powerful allies." "And now I have the truth on my side," replied Samuel, his eyes meeting hers with new confidence. As he mounted Thunder again to leave the restaurant, a spontaneous round of applause arose from the tables. The people who had previously judged him by his appearance were now giving him a standing ovation. However, through the glass window he could see Mitchell on the phone gesturing furiously, a reminder that the battle had only just begun. A week after the incident at Savannah Flavors, Samuel Parker watched the sunset from his porch. The Santa Clara farm, with its 200 acres of red soil in rural Georgia, had never seemed so valuable to him as now, when he had almost lost it. The sky was painted in orange and purple hues as the cicadas began their nightly song, composing the symphony of the countryside that cradled his thoughts. The story of the farmer and the horse, as the episode had become known, had spread like wildfire. First in Atlanta, then throughout the state, and finally gaining national repercussion. The video recorded by the restaurant customers had accumulated millions of views on social media, and Samuel had seen his face stamped in newspapers and television programs. From a simple countryman, he had unwittingly become a symbol of resistance against the powerful. "Another newspaper wanting an interview," announced Lisa Miller, sitting beside him in a rocking chair, furiously typing on her laptop. Since that night, the journalist had become a constant presence at the farm, transforming Samuel's story into a series of investigative reports on Mitchell Anderson and his seemingly unshakable empire. "This time it's the New York Times. What should I tell them?" Samuel ran his hand through his graying hair, tired. "Tell them I need time. All this fame wasn't what I was looking for." "Fame is a consequence, not your goal," replied Lisa, without taking her eyes off the screen. "The important thing is that the district attorney has opened a formal inquiry against Anderson. 3 more similar cases to yours have emerged. Small producers who were deceived with adulterated contracts in the last 2 years. 3? Samuel turned to her, surprised. Actually, 5 now. I received 2 more reports this morning. They all follow the same pattern. Contracts modified after signing, clauses inserted about property transfer, values that were never paid in full. Lisa finally raised her eyes from the computer, meeting Samuel's gaze. You opened the floodgates of a dam that was about to burst. Samuel nodded, his thoughts distant. And our contract? Any news? Judge Patterson issued an injunction suspending any property transfer until the final judgment. Your lands are safe, at least for now. The farmer took a deep breath, the aroma of wet earth after the afternoon rain filling his lungs. In the distance, in the pastures that extended as far as the eye could see, the cattle dotted the landscape like black and brown spots. Closer to the house, thunder grazed peacefully, oblivious to the revolution he had helped trigger. I never imagined it would come to this, confessed Samuel, serving himself a sip of coffee from the thermos on the small wooden table between the chairs. I just wanted my money and my dignity. Lisa closed the laptop and turned completely to him. The orange light of the evening highlighted the lines of determination on her tanned face, framed by black hair that fell in waves over her shoulders. In a week, Samuel had discovered in her not just a professional ally, but someone who shared his deepest values. You got much more than that. You've become a symbol, Samuel. Small producers across the country are speaking out, sharing similar stories, confronting those who have oppressed them for years. The Davids against the Goliaths, he murmured. Exactly. A shy smile formed on the farmer's face. I didn't want to be a symbol of anything. I just did what I had to do. That's exactly why people identify with you. Lisa gently touched his arm, a gesture that had become natural between them. You did what many dream of doing, but never had the courage. Samuel looked at her hand on his arm, feeling a warmth that didn't come just from the touch. A widower for 7 years, he had grown accustomed to solitude, focusing only on work and keeping the farm running. Lisa's presence had brought something new, unexpected. The moment of tranquility was interrupted by the sound of tires on the dirt road. A black luxury car was approaching, raising red dust that gleamed like copper under the setting sun. We were expecting this visit, murmured Lisa, standing up and adjusting her shirt. It wasn't a statement, but an implicit question. Sooner or later, agreed Samuel, also standing. The news reached New York. It was just a matter of time. The vehicle, a latest model Range Rover, stopped in the yard of the house, and from it descended Catherine Anderson, Mitchell's wife. In her early 40s, she maintained the classic elegance of high society women, even wearing apparently casual clothes, light linen pants, silk blouse, and a Hermes scarf around her neck. She advanced with determination to the porch, ignoring the mud that stained her Italian shoes. Mrs. Anderson, Samuel stood up as a sign of respect. I didn't expect to see you on my land. Catherine looked around, assessing the simplicity of the farm with critical eyes, the wooden house with clay tiles, the rustic furniture, the landscape without fence or walls that delimited where the yard ended and the pasture began. This is certainly not the environment I'm accustomed to, Mr. Parker, but exceptional circumstances require exceptional measures. Lisa Miller, the journalist, introduced herself, extending a hand that Catherine deliberately ignored. I know who you are, Ms. Miller. I've read your reports. The tone made her contempt clear. Turning to Samuel, I need to speak with you in private. Anything you want to say can be in Lisa's presence, he replied firmly. I have no secrets from the press, unlike some. Catherine sighed, resigned. As you wish. In that case, let's get straight to the point. I've come to offer a deal. Another one. Samuel laughed without humor. We've had our share of deals with your family. My husband made a mistake, admitted Catherine, each word seeming to cost her great effort. He'd exceeded himself in business zeal. Anderson Agribusiness is willing to honor the original contract. 15 million, no hidden clauses, no property. Transfer. Lisa leaned forward, crossing her arms. Her voice, normally soft, acquired a skeptical tone. And in exchange, Discretion, responded Catherine coldly. Withdraw the complaint, cease the interviews, end this unnecessary spectacle. Spectacle? Samuel repeated, incredulous. You call it a spectacle that I'm defending what is rightfully mine? Choose your words carefully, Mr. Parker. Catherine nervously adjusted her scarf. There's much at stake here. Samuel exchanged glances with Lisa before responding. Why now? What changed? Our investors are nervous. The company's reputation is compromised. Catherine paused, choosing her words. What you did in the restaurant, what I did was reveal the truth, interrupted Samuel. The truth, Mr. Parker, is a flexible concept in the business world. Not in my world, he retorted, his voice as firm as the hardwood that supported his house. A tense silence settled. In the sky was now rapidly darkening, and the first stars were beginning to dot the firmament. In the distance, thunder whinnied as if sensing the tension in the air. My husband is suffering the consequences of an error in judgment, continued Catherine, changing tactics. Our daughters are being harassed at school, St. Benedict's School in New York, where they've studied for years. Some families are demanding that they be transferred. Her voice faltered slightly. They are 12 and 15, Mr. Parker. Our family doesn't deserve this for a single commercial misunderstanding. Samuel felt a pang of genuine sympathy. He knew well the weight of decisions that affected entire families. When he lost his wife to cancer, he had to explain to his own daughters, now adults living in Washington, D.C., that life was sometimes unfair to the innocent. I have no interest in harming innocent children, Mrs. Anderson, but neither can I ignore what your husband tried to do to me and apparently to other producers. Catherine opened her designer handbag and took out an embossed paper envelope. A copy of the new contract revised by our lawyers, and this, she placed a check on the table. An advance of $5 million as proof of our good faith. Lisa took the contract, quickly leafing through it with eyes trained in legal documents. Samuel, on the other hand, didn't even look at the check. His eyes remained fixed on Catherine's, looking for something beyond words. Why didn't your husband come personally? The question caught Catherine by surprise. She hesitated before answering, adjusting herself in the chair as one who seeks a more comfortable position in an uncomfortable situation. Mitchell is indisposed. Recent events have affected his health. He had a minor heart attack on the night after the incident at the restaurant. Samuel's face softened for a moment. I'm sorry about that. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Translation. He's hiding while sending his wife to do the dirty work, commented Lisa acidly. Without raising her eyes from the contract she was analyzing, Catherine shot her a furious look. I didn't come here to be insulted by a sensationalist journalist. No, you came to buy the silence of a man your husband tried to ruin, retorted Lisa. And, by the way, there are inconsistencies in this contract too. Clause 7, paragraph T. 3. Mentions a previous agreement on patent rights that is not attached. Catherine paled slightly. It must be a typing error. Samuel raised his hand, asking for calm. Mrs. Anderson, I appreciate your initiative, but I need time to consider this proposal. I won't make hasty decisions again. Time is a luxury. We don't have, Mr. Parker. The investors are meeting tomorrow. We need an answer today. There was a tone of growing desperation in her voice. At that moment, Lisa's phone rang. She answered, stepping away a few paces to the corner of the porch. Samuel observed her expression gradually change, from neutral to surprise, then to a kind of contained triumph. When? She asked the caller. Are you sure? Send me the documents immediately. Hanging up, Lisa turned to Catherine with an ironic smile. Perfect timing, Mrs. Anderson. I just received interesting information from my source at the Federal Reserve. Catherine visibly paled. What information? Anderson Agribusiness transferred $90 million to an account in the Cayman Islands the morning after the incident at the restaurant. Coincidentally, the same amount as 3 contracts like Samuel's. That's absurd, protested Catherine, but her quivering lip betrayed her. These are unfounded accusations. Is that so? Lisa approached, relentless. Or was it part of the original plan? Deceive the producers, take the lands and the money, and then disappear with the resources to a tax haven? My source has the account numbers, the times of the transfers, and even the operation codes. Night had now completely fallen, and Teresa, the farm's housekeeper for 20 years, came silently to light the porch lights. The yellowish light of the lamps cast long shadows, transforming Catherine's face into a mask of conflicting emotions. Samuel observed attentively, noting the slight tremor in the woman's hands, the way she avoided eye contact, the fingers that wouldn't stop adjusting the scarf around her neck. "My husband would never," she began, but her voice failed. "Your husband would never what, Mrs. Anderson?" pressed Samuel, leaning forward. "Never deceive someone, never adulterate contracts, never flee with someone else's money, because we already have proof that he did the first two." Catherine finally crumbled. It wasn't a dramatic collapse, but the slow undoing of a carefully maintained facade. Her shoulders fell, the straight spine yielded, and she covered her face with her hands for a moment before partially recomposing herself. "You don't understand. We're on the verge of bankruptcy. The company is drowning in debt. The investments in the last 2 years, the new projects, nothing worked out. Mitchell, he's desperate." The shock of the confession hung in the air for a few moments. An owl hooted in the distance, like an ironic counterpoint to the revelation. Lisa immediately picked up her recorder, but Samuel gestured for her to wait. "So that was the plan," he concluded calmly. "Use my money and my lands, along with those of other producers, as collateral for new loans while hiding the capital abroad." Catherine didn't respond, but her silence was confirmation enough. "Did you know about this from the beginning?" asked Lisa, her voice now gentler, the journalistic instinct giving way to human compassion. "I discovered it last week," she responded, almost in a whisper. "After the incident. Mitchell always handled the finances. I managed the social, part public relations. When I started receiving calls from creditors I didn't know, I demanded explanations." "And he told you everything," completed Samuel. Catherine nodded slowly. "The company owes more than 200 million. The assets don't cover even half of that. The lands he tried to be obtained from you would be the last chance to convince the bank to refinance. And now he sent you here to try to save what's left," concluded Samuel. Catherine raised her gaze, her watery eyes reflecting the porch lights. "I didn't come at his command. He doesn't even know I'm here. In fact," she hesitated, "we're separating. I came on my own, for my daughters. They don't deserve to grow up with the weight of this shame." An understanding silence followed. Teresa came again, this time bringing a tray with coffee and fresh water, which she silently placed on the center table before withdrawing with the discretion of someone who knows important conversations are happening. Samuel served water for Catherine, who accepted with trembling hands. "What will happen to you?" he asked, surprising Lisa with his gentleness. Catherine took a sip of water before responding, "I'm going to sell what I can, jewelry, properties in my name. I've already put our apartment in New York up for sale. Maybe it will be enough to start over somewhere smaller with the girls. And Mitchell?" she shrugged. "He will have to face the consequences of his choices. I can no longer protect him." Samuel exchanged a significant look with Lisa, who nodded imperceptibly, understanding what was going through the farmer's mind. "Mrs. Anderson, I cannot accept your proposal." "I understand," she responded, defeated. "No, you don't understand," he continued. "I cannot accept it because it wouldn't be fair to the other producers your husband deceived, but I can offer something different." Both Catherine and Lisa looked at him with curiosity. "Tell the whole truth." Here and now to Lisa, all the names, all the adulterated contracts, all the details of the scheme, the number of the account in the Cayman Islands, the names of the accomplices within the banks, everything. "For what?" asked Catherine, confused. "That would only accelerate the end." "To do justice," Samuel replied firmly, "and in exchange I promise to help your daughters." "How?" Her eyes widened. "I have savings. Not a lot, but enough to ensure they can continue studying, regardless of what happens to their father's company. I can create a trust fund that only they can access when they come of age." Catherine blinked several times, as if trying to process what she had just heard. "You would do that after everything my husband tried to do?" "Your daughters are not to blame for their father's choices," Samuel replied simply. "No child should pay for mistakes they didn't commit." Silent tears ran down Catherine's face. "Why? Why would you do this for us?" Samuel looked at the dark horizon, where Thunder's profile stood out against the starry sky, just a black silhouette against the distant glow of the stars. "Because I grew up without a father, Mrs. Anderson. He abandoned my mother when he found out she was pregnant. I know how hard it is for a child to carry the mistakes of adults." Catherine wiped away the tears, recovering part of her composure. The Hermes scarf now served to dry her face, far from its original decorative function. "My proposal is fair," continued Samuel. "The truth in exchange for a future for your daughters. It's my word, and my word is worth more than any contract." Catherine looked at Lisa, then back at Samuel. Finally, she nodded slowly. "What do you want to know first?" Lisa prepared her recorder, while Samuel offered another glass of water to Catherine. The night was now complete over them, the countryside sky dotted with thousands of stars. On the small digital recorder, the red recording button shone like a beacon of hope, not just for Samuel, but for all the small producers who had been silenced for so long. Thunder approached the porch, attracted by the voices. Samuel extended his hand, caressing the muzzle of the animal that, unknowingly, had helped change the course of justice. "Start from the beginning," said Samuel gently. "We have all night." Dear listeners, we hope that Samuel Parker's journey has touched your hearts and inspired your souls. To continue this journey of intense emotions and justice, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories about ordinary people who find extraordinary strength within themselves. Find this playlist by clicking on the link to the left of the video. If this story about dignity, courage, and the transformative power of truth resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of American life in its multiple facets. Share with us in the comments. Have you ever witnessed or experienced situations where you needed to defend your dignity against all odds? What lessons did you learn from these experiences? We are eager to read your stories and continue this conversation that unites us as Americans who dream of a more just and honest country. Until the next story.